Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, this is Daybreak. This morning we want to talk about something historic that is set to be happening in the country. As today, the country is going to be launching its first operational 3U Earth observation satellite, something that is going to go a long way in informing timely and regular collection of satellite data that will help us in making crucial decisions in sectors such as agriculture, disaster management, resource management, and we'll be breaking down this further for you to help you bring it closer home, because we have a team of experts who have been part and parcel of this historic journey for us as a country in studio with us this morning. And they are Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Nyawade, who is the Acting Director, Space Regulation, Exploration and Utilization. Good morning. Thank you for your time. Charles Mwangi on my immediate right is the Acting Director, Space Sector and Technological Development. Thank you for your time, Charles.
Thank you.
And we have the only lady in the house, Captain Claire Muhungi, who is a GIS officer. She will tell us more about that. Thank you, Captain, for your time. And also in studio is Patan Odhiambo, who is a space engineer and the developer of Taifa One that will be set for launch today. Thank you for your time, lady and gentlemen. Actually, part of a team of 9 Kenyan engineers who designed and developed Taifa One. Thank you, Patan, for creating time for us. We'd like to know more about how this began and what it means for us as a country. We are really boasting about it, but people need to know why it is such a big deal. But let me just begin by you, Lieutenant. It was supposed to happen yesterday, and people were waiting for this. Right after Easter, this was going to happen. Probably just a bit of clarification on why it didn't happen yesterday, and probably what we should be expecting today.
Thank you. Actually, yesterday did not happen because there were strong winds in the upper atmosphere that caused the launch to be delayed. Because usually as the rocket ascends into space, the wind conditions affect the stability of the rocket. And to ensure that we have a successful launch, we limit that risk by delaying the launch. So today also we got an update that the launch has been delayed by a further 2 days. Yes, so we anticipate it to be launched on the 14th of April. Thank you.
All right, so a point of clarification.
Yes,
it's not going to be launched today either.
No, neither
it
today.
will be taking place on 14th.
14th.
That is the day after tomorrow. All right.
Okay. Correct.
All right.
Patan.
Yes.
Again, 14th is the day after tomorrow, yes. Yes, Patan. I mean, as the developer, what did it take? I mean, I want to understand, and Kenyans are, of course, eager and anxious to understand, what did it take to put together what will be taking off from the engineering perspective?
Yes, so we are a team of 9 engineers with different specialities. We have mechanical engineers, aeronautical and aerospace engineers. We have electrical and electronics engineers on our team. So to come up with a satellite, we have the various parts of the satellite. We have the payload or the instrument of the mission. And this instrument of the mission must be supported by other subsystems. So we as the engineers, with the different expertise that we have to come up with the subsystems, and we have to come up also with the proper way to sustain the payload while it is in space. So this is a process that begins by us getting the problem at hand. Okay. That is, for example, the state of the country, and then we now try to design the mission around this. So we decide on the best instrument for the mission, then we go ahead and decide on the best altitude for the mission, that is the orbit height. Then after this, we now decide on how much power the mission is going to require, and we have an electrical power subsystem engineer for that. We decide on how the radio communication is going to be. We have a radio communication engineer for that. Okay. Then we decide on how we are going to be orientating the satellite. So in what direction is the satellite going to be pointing? We have what we call attitude determination and control subsystem engineer to take care of this. We also have thermal conditions that are extreme in space, and we have a thermal control subsystem engineer for this. Then housing everything together is what we call the structure. We have a structure and mechanisms engineer for these mechanisms, because we also have deployments of solar arrays or antennas. So basically we are a team of engineers that work together to be able to break down the problem into a set of engineering requirements that then we go and make use of our own understanding obtained from school and from other trainings to come up with the actual satellite. Once we have the satellite components, we put them together in what we call assembly, and then assembly and integration, then we test to qualify that indeed this satellite can survive launch and it can go into orbit and sustain the mission for the duration that we expect it to.
You know, it's interesting to actually discover that we can actually do that as a country, and I just want you to talk to us about how it all began and your collaboration with the Bulgarian autospace manufacturer. To what extent did we play a role as a country, and what did they do? And what this then says about our capability as a country, because we are in an era where space exploration is something that we cannot run away from. Just talk to me about what this says about us and our capabilities as a country, and also that collaboration that you had.
Yes, thank you. As you've correctly noted, this is not something that we have been doing traditionally as a country. It is something that is rather new to us. But as you might observe, we have been training engineers over the years. So our engineers simply have never had the opportunities to be able to put their expertise into practice. So this mission Taifa 1, it brought this opportunity to our engineers. For myself, I graduated in 2019, and I have at least many of my colleagues who graduated afterwards, and we are on this team. So that means that we have directly picked from our local universities, and these are the engineers in whom we have laid our trust so that they can come up with this system. I think this speaks to the quality of training that we have locally, and the fact that the quality of knowledge that we deliver to our engineers is international enough. So to our collaboration with the Bulgarian manufacturer, we did not have the manufacturing capabilities locally. We did not have, because you need a very stringent controlled environment to be able to come up with these subsystems. You need to have had at least some experience. We call it flight heritage. You need to have flown aerospace components actually for you to trust that you can actually fly in a mission. So this is why we had to partner with an external partner to help us with the manufacturing of the components once we had completed the designs.
Okay, Captain Claire Mohonge, I mean, as a GIS officer, explain to us the importance of data analysis in this whole concept and debate about space exploration, and now Kenya now setting its foot among the nations that are racing to be, of course, leading the exploration race, in this case, the United States, which is a key partner where the launch will be happening, and other partners including India, China, and the United Kingdom.
So to start with, Earth observation data is so critical in solving our socio-economic problems. For Kenya or for the developing countries, we have so many issues, starting from the climate change to food security. And having our satellite out there, we can be able to have this data to monitor our natural resources and also to track the trends in the country. We can also be able to track issues of the flood and also to monitor some of these issues like the disaster, the flood issues. And when it comes to food security, we are using Earth observation data, that's the satellite imagery. We can be able to map all the farms and to monitor the health of a farm from the growing period up to harvesting time. And we'll be addressing the issues of food security with our Earth observation data. So it's so broad when it's come to Earth observation. And for data analytics, we are moving from the traditions way of doing analytics. We have the AI, the machine learning, and the deep learning. So it's so broad, and we are so happy to have this Earth observation satellite up there. And in future, we're just hoping to have a series of many, so that when you're doing these trends analysis. We have data, like data is available to the country and also to the research and academia to solve some of these socioeconomic problems.
Okay.
Captain Claire, let me call you Captain Claire. And it feels nice to do that because you understand the journey we are in as a country to embrace women in the STEM sector. I just want to understand from you, what happens in between from the collection of data from the satellite to relaying it to the receiving station, and how this information is going to be cascaded to the relevant stakeholders to make it understandable and useful to them, because there has to be something that happens in between, and that actually falls rightfully within your docket. Tell me a bit about how that happens.
So what happens is that the satellite up there, we're able to have a communication link to our ground station. Then from the ground station, there are few processes whereby because the satellite don't capture the image as it is, so there are few processes that happens at the ground station, and so that we can be able now to get the image. So from the satellite, we have the communication link to the ground station. Then from the ground station, there are a few processes that happens there, and after that, we have now to the workstation. Now that we do some of the correction which have not been done at the ground station, so that we get a clear image that can be used by the end user. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Charles Mwangi, Director, Space Sector and Technology Development. What does today's launch going forward project about Kenya's technological prowess and its involvement in the global advancement of technology, including the race to space?
Thank you. We see this as only a beginning because we see Kenya as a country that is carrying a niche for itself within the space sector in Africa. Just to give some context in terms of how the global space economy is, a study that was done in 2022 quantified the space sector to be approximately about $400 billion. What Africa contributes to is about $20 billion. That is about 5% of the global space sector. And of course, Kenya has not been an active player. So what we're looking at is how do we claim a portion of those funds, or those opportunities that should come to Kenya. And the reason why we're excited about the launch of the Taifa One, it begins the conversation that we're having now in terms of what can we do more, what are the opportunities available out there, how best can we leverage the technology that is satellite, both in what we call the upstream. The upstream is where you talk about the satellite development, where my colleague Patton was talking about that process of the development of the satellite, up to the level where Captain Claire was talking about now working on the data to impact what we call Wanjiko on the ground, because essentially what we do has to have an impact to the common person. And we're looking at the whole value chain from the top to the bottom and how many opportunities that would create. And one of the other conversations we're also having now is how can we then also launch from our territory, because that has previously happened and we want to see how that evolves. But again, we're excited because we're having this conversation and we're also saying that there is need for more investment within the sector to create more opportunities for us to grow as a country and get that piece of the cake, if I might call it, of the space economy.
And as you point that out, this will be happening in California in the United States of America, right?
Correct.
And why California? Why not here? Does it point to the lacking infrastructure?
Yes, because we do not have a spaceport, and potentially, hopefully, in the coming years, that would be something that we would want to explore, because we used to launch here between 1967 to 1988 in Ngomeni, Malindi. But partly why we are launching from the US is because we are doing what is called ride share. If you have a matatu, we are one of the passengers. So you have a number of satellites that are going to space together. Ours is a 3, it's much smaller. So you have quite a number of satellites that are going together. So what happens is when you have a number of satellites going together, they have to be aggregated together and they go up in one rocket. And that is what happened in this particular case, where we had to, we secured the services of ExoLaunch to aggregate all these satellites. They had others as well. And then that is how we ended up having the launch happening in the US. And that the US, because SpaceX has a launching capability, and they're using their rocket, Falcon 9, to launch from the US. And that's why we're doing it from that point.
All right, just to pick it from where you have left, Colonel, there seems to be a lot of opportunities that are yet to be tapped, especially for us as a country, because Mr. Mwangi there just cited that Africa contributes or takes up about 20 USD billion from the entire 400 US billion dollars that actually potentially can be generated from the space sector. I just want to understand what you think is some of the bottlenecks that hinder us from fully tapping into the opportunities that are presented by this. Is it the lack of expertise? Is it what needs to be put in place in terms of setting up the necessary infrastructure? Is it the lack of funding? Where is the problem exactly, and how do we navigate?
Okay, thank you for that question. So there's no direct or specific answer to that, but what I would say is most of this technology is quite costly. And the only way you can break even is economies of scale. So as a continent, it will make more sense for countries to aggregate this infrastructure as we grow. Because independently, if you remember the beginning of the space race, with the launch of Sputnik and the race to the moon, it was mainly US and Russia. Then the other countries started toeing up to them. But now, looking at the developing nations, the more immediate needs that need to be addressed create a scenario where, for you to comprehensively or make a good investment, you need to collaborate with other entities. So it's a mix of the economy, the scale at which you're doing it, and then also the other competing or intervening interests. Yes.
Maybe Patan, you can also just chip in on that. You know, what does it take to do something like what we have achieved as a country? Just take us behind the scenes, because many would wish we see more. Kenya should position itself more assertively in space exploration. That is actually the desire of all of us, but we do not know what it takes behind the scenes. You began this journey, is it 2 years ago?
Yes.
And it has taken a lot, of processes and stages. Just tell us a bit more about why we cannot be able to go as fast as we want as a country.
Yeah, so like Colonel has said, we do have limitations in terms of the entry costs into this kind of a program, because of how challenging it is to design systems for space applications, because we require very high levels of reliability for such systems. We don't get an opportunity to bring them down for repairs or to send someone up to repair them. So once we send them, we need to be very sure that they are not going to fail. And if they fail, we have a plan. And if we have no plan, perhaps our mission is already done by that time. So first of all, there is the facilities that we need to be able to come up with this kind of systems. And they are quite, the costs are quite steep. And in Africa, we have not so many of them. So this pushes the costs high a little bit, because we have to seek partnerships elsewhere with more advanced and developed countries. Then again, there is the learning curve that comes with this, because we haven't done it before. So there is a learning curve that comes with this, which I want to say that we have capable engineers. It doesn't take a genius to be able to do all this. It just takes a lot of discipline and hard work. So we have the human capital that can undertake this kind of work. But perhaps we need to go ahead and continue creating awareness, continue showing that it can happen, so that we can tap into this human capital to move ourselves forward.
Yeah. For you to do this, did you had to undergo some sort of special training to manage to come up with the design and develop this specific project, the Taifa One? Was there something that you had to do extra, or it was just based on the local training that you received before? So
apart from the training that we had in school or in class, the Kenya Space Agency organized for additional trainings. First of all, with local professors. Then we also got partners from abroad, some professors as well, to help us just understand how to go about this process. Then in partnership again with our partner in Eurosat, we got some training to be able to build world-class space systems. So we have had a bit of training, and this is an ongoing process. We have also trained, again, through partnership with the Kenya Space Agency, with the Egyptian Space Agency. They are ahead of us in this, and they have a lot of experience. So we have collaborated with them in training opportunities for ourselves. I've been a beneficiary of the same. And this is an ongoing process. Even now we have opportunities that keep coming up in partnership with other more advanced agencies, and these are some of the opportunities we take to ensure that we sharpen our skills to the level that we need them to be. Apart from this, we are just equipped with the right attitude to be able to undertake all this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Captain Claire, data is very key in the contemporary society, that is the 21st century, and as pointed out by Nyawade as to what kick-started in the 1950s with Sputnik and the race to space between the Americans and the Soviet Union then, and the money spent on what we have today in the 21st century. I mean, is there a regulatory framework with regards to data in this case of countries, because there are many, according to Charles, who are going now in the space race, of not spying on each other, because different data is for different use. You said ours is on agriculture, human development to attain sustainable development goals. But then is there a framework of protection of other satellites or other countries not also gathering information on us? And what is the regulatory framework between all these countries racing towards the space?
Sure. I want to agree with you. Like data nowadays, it's a good resource. It's a rich resource. But on the issue of regulatory systems, we have a body which is a UN body called UNOSA, whereby countries which aspiring countries into space, they have treaties. So you sign the treaties so that we have the good use of the outer space, and that's what guides all the countries which are going out there into the space. Yes.
And therefore, there is an assurity guaranteed in terms of no collection on, no spying on each other, because that seems to be a problem. And also Kenyans who are concerned on the text messages that we are receiving as to how safe they are in terms of their data protection, or no collection of important data that regards them.
For example, when you come to Earth observation satellites, we don't have a restriction. The satellite just gather all the data in the world, captures all the images of the world. So depends with the end user. But with the countries signing the treaties, we hope that's the hope for the UN. Like this data will be used for peaceful operations, not like for spying and doing other illegal issues. And when it's for the climate, actually the climate data, I don't see any illegal use of the climate as satellites. And also for the communication, just for the communication. So I think the issue now is for the Earth observation data, which can capture anything on the Earth. So with the signing of the treaties and the agreements with UNOSA, the countries are signed, like they're just launching the satellite for better use of for the Earth and managing the Earth ecosystem.
Okay.
But it is still pegged on hope, though, that is going to be the case. Looking at the future, is there a possibility that that might change, Mwangi? Because you see what happened in the 50s, where the US and the Soviet Union were trying to debate over who is going to do what first. It was sort of like a battle of who is more powerful, there was one that went to the moon first, and sort of like, as we get into a space where countries will start, there's going to be that power struggle. Is that likely to change? Is that a risk that probably we should be careful about?
Yes and no. And I just wanted to add to what my colleague Captain Claire was indicating. In terms of data collection, there is no limitation. Normally, there's what we call we use outer space for the common good. So if you have a set out there, it will take imagery where and wherever they want. The person who has sent it out there will continue whatever area they want to map. So there is no restriction as opposed to where you have airspace. So you say outer space is not regulated as such. And there is need for that because one of the issues that has risen recently is the issues on space debris. Where you have countries where they want to demonstrate their capabilities, they send missiles to space and then they shoot their rockets, and then what happens is that once they shoot and they hit their satellites using the rockets, then it breaks to very small pieces. And those pieces, just for context, the speed by which the satellites operate in outer space, you're talking about 7.5 kilometers to about 8 kilometers per second. So if you have a debris that is moving that fast, it puts into jeopardy other satellites that are there. Even the one that we're going to launch, some of them do not have maneuverability capabilities. So you're not able to, like the bus where you would avoid a pothole. So some of them do not have that maneuverability capability, and that poses a risk. And that is one of the concerns that are out there. And then the other concern was where you have missiles put in space. And that has been a concern because even for some countries, sometimes there is no, although there is a UNOSA requirement for you to declare what is the payload. The payload is essentially what you're taking to space. Some of the countries do not declare that. And there is a potential of having missiles, again, deployed in space and then just waiting for that condition. But in terms of the value addition, again, there is both the pros and the cons, and again, we hope, again, like Captain Claire was indicating, that we use space for the common good and to add value to the livelihood that we're living today.
All right, so let's stay on the pros. Let's avoid the cons. All right, so we want to take a very short break, but when we come back, we'll be looking at, because this is said to be helping us gather data that is going to inform crucial decisions in sectors such as agriculture, food security, natural resource management, and the likes. I just want us to compare how the situation has been now vis-a-vis the future that we are looking at in terms of that. But that will come after
the break. Here on the broadcast, the hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya, at Ayub Abdikadir, and at Safin_Achieng. More after the break as we welcome your contributions here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.